Hello, boys and girls, children of all ages. Fat Bastard Wannabe Buddha coming at you today. Today's discussion is splitting the baby. That both sides are morally equally and culpable for the recent government shutdown. That's nonsense. I'm sorry. It's absolutely nonsense. Anybody that has the most reasonable understanding or the basic curiosity would quickly realize that this was planned basically after the loss in 2012 by the Republicans. And the New York Times recently published an article detailing how the Koch brothers and a bunch of other little right-wing think tanks got together in a means of using the debt itself and the budget negotiations as a means to maybe defund Obamacare. And that's all this is about. And this was all the Republicans all along. There's been several times for the opportunities to pass a continuing resolution that would be clean without any ties to Obamacare. Sorry, they lost. I have some severe reservations about Obamacare. I think it is nothing more than a bailout of the insurance companies. I think the individual mandate is absolutely repugnant. But what the Republicans are doing cannot be allowed. Period. It just cannot be allowed. They absolutely must be crushed. You cannot have a regional minority party threaten the security and safety of the economy of a nation. You can't allow it. You just cannot allow it. They lost, unfortunately, in the last election. They lost in the election before that. They've lost 5 of the last 6 elections as far as the presidential and the popular vote. They are a regional minority party, and they are using their little small regional minority status and absolutely willing to play suicide bomber in order to get the goalposts further and further towards their directions. And this has to stop. There is no two sides to this story. This is nonsense. There's not always two sides to any stories. You don't have to call something right down the middle. You just don't. There is no two sides for this story. Do I believe Obama wants to negotiate in good faith? No. I think what Obama wants to do is get some kind of short-term deal done so that he can put pressure on Senate Democrats so they can do some grand bargaining and cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. But that doesn't mean both sides are morally culpable. It just doesn't. You can believe that Obama is a bought and paid for corporate shill, and also believe that fundamentally you have to stop the rise of this neo-Confederate party that's on the march. They must be rolled back. They must be crushed. You cannot allow this to stand. And to play this little mind games of both sides are guilty and a pox on both houses, that's intellectual laziness. It really is. Yes, the Democratic Party right now has been completely bought and paid for by its corporate benefactors. But, unfortunately, the other side of the argument is dangerous. And when you act like adults sometimes, adults really do have to choose lesser of two evils. Yes, you end up with an evil. But it's an evil that you can control. You know, Obama doesn't have as much control over the Senate Democrats as he thinks he does. And he definitely doesn't have as much control over the House Democrats as he thinks he might have. And actually, it would be a lot more easier to influence someone like Obama, who's a classic politician, than it is for the left to have any influence over the Koch brothers or corporate America. It just is. Unfortunately, this is where we find ourselves in the society right now. We have one side of the argument that is basically a neo-Confederate, neo-fascist party, and the other one is Wall Street light. It's not a pleasant situation. Hopefully, we can build off that, but unfortunately, you have to stop certain things, and you cannot allow a minority regional party to threaten the health and the well-being of a society. You cannot allow them to take hostages. You cannot allow them to force and upset democratic rule in a democratic republic. They lost. Sorry. Them's the breaks. You cannot continually go back over and over to a single piece of legislation, win both chambers, win the executive branch, and then propose your legislation to strip it. But if you don't have the votes to win at the national level, doesn't give you the right to dictate policy. and that needs to desperately be addressed here. There is no two sides to this argument. The Republicans have screwed the pooch, and they desperately want the Democrats to help bail them out. And the Democrats shouldn't bail them out. The Democrats should go for the jugular and crush that party once and for all. They have to drive that neo-Confederate wing into the ground. They cannot allow it to maintain any subsistence or give them any means of a reprieve. And unfortunately, I worry that Obama will buckle on this. That he really does want a baby continuing resolution to push it out for 6 weeks, and then November comes around, do a grand bargaining. But that cannot be allowed to happen. As much as we hate this guy, and a lot of us on the left really do not like this guy, the alternative, unfortunately, is not in the cards. This has to be crushed, and it has to be crushed substantially. And it cannot be allowed. This cannot be allowed to stand. You cannot allow a minority regional party to dictate terms at the national level and continually bring back forth legislation in which they lost over and over. All right, that's my limited thought for the day. Thank you very much. Thanks for the likes, subscribes, and favorites. Thank you.